Hi everyone, maybe you are that couple that is considering IVF treatment. If that's the case, then please watch this video. There'll be the basic facts of IVF, but I'll also be telling you some things that the doctors won't necessarily tell you. First of all, greetings from Life for All. My name is Johanna. So, according to the Indian Society of Assisted Reproduction, there are 27.5 million couples in India that are infertile. That's a huge number, 27.5 million. We need to know that these are individuals, these are people like you and me who have, just yearning for a baby. They just want to hold a baby in their arms. How many tears have flowed, how painful it is not to have a baby. So I can only imagine that the pain that you would be going through, what it is like. Before, though, we dive into such a difficult procedure as IVF, please make sure that you rule out any other medical issues that could be causing this infertility. Check your thyroid, check your prolactin levels. Is it maybe stress that you're not able to conceive? Also, what is really important is maybe for the guys, for the husbands, to go for a spermiogram. Now, according to specialists in this field, 40% of the cases of infertility are actually due to the quality and the count of the sperm. So do check that out before you go and go for IVF treatment. But what does this treatment actually look like? So the first thing the doctor will do is he would put the woman on a hormone therapy. Lots of injections, and this would make the ovary to produce lots of eggs, lots of ova. And then after a certain time, about 15 eggs would be harvested. The doctor would also need a semen sample, and then outside of the womb, in his laboratory, he would put these two together, and conception would take place. Now, what happens then? He would take maybe 2 to 6 of these embryos after a couple of days, they've grown, and he would inject them into the mother's uterus. The rest of them, he would cryopreserve. What does that mean? It basically means he would freeze them. Now, if these embryos in the mother's womb do not start growing, they don't implant, then they would take some of those frozen ones and start a second cycle. Or in the other case, the embryos would start growing. So that's the basic outline of IVF. But now, some things that the doctor might not tell you. See, I told you earlier that the others would be cryopreserved. They would be frozen. What is that is going to be frozen there? It's an embryo, but what is an embryo? At the moment that this doctor brings the ovum and the sperm together, you have a new baby. There is a baby that carries your DNA. Actually, if he puts 15 ova together with the sperm, technically there's 15 children that you have. Some might look like you, some might have the voice of the father, some are obviously girls, some are boys. But all these are individual, wonderful little children of yours that just need a lot of time to still grow. So what happens if the IVF actually works out and there are those other ones that are frozen? Well, after a couple of years, they'll just be thrown away. I know that in the US, there are women who have adopted these babies, these frozen embryos. They've basically gone to the IVF clinics and said, hey, before you throw them out, implant them into my uterus. I want to adopt them so that they can continue their life. Another thing that we need to know is, remember I said that there's about 2 to 6 embryos that they would implant into the uterus. Now, if all 6 of them start growing, which lady can carry 6 babies to term? So then in that case, the doctor would have to do something called selective pregnancy reduction, which means he injects potassium chloride, which is a poison basically, into some of these little babies, and then they would die. So all this to say that the whole issue of IVF is an ethical issue as well, because if IVF works and you have a little baby at the end, there are other children of yours who gave their life so that this one could live. Another thing we need to take into account are the side effects for the mother. Remember, there's this hormone treatment, lots of injections at specific times, and they are so strong that these women just go through immense mood swings. Some women can't even work anymore during that phase. It takes a toll on the marriage relationship. So thrombosis, embolism, so these are things that we need to take into account as well. Women can really suffer through this. And then, of course, the costs. We know that IVF can be very costly, especially if another cycle is done and then another cycle is done. So if we take into account, we've got the ethical issue that some children will be giving their lives for the ones that might be born. We've got the side effects issue. The woman's health is quite under strain in this process. And we've got the costs. And then, if you consider that the success rate of IVF is very low, in fact, it's only at about 17%. And these are not 17% of success rate that babies will actually be born. This is just 17% will actually implant and the pregnancy will start. But then we have a lot of miscarriages there as well. And then, of course, the doctor will say, if it didn't work out next time, we'll do another cycle. And then we'll do, or maybe next cycle, or maybe next cycle. And there's this hope that always comes, and then it doesn't work out. So it can be a very traumatic experience for everybody. So I just want to encourage you with two things to consider. First of all, I believe that a married couple can have a fulfilling life even without children. I know that especially in this culture, if a woman has not born a child, you know, there's something missing. And I understand the desire to have a child, but nonetheless, you are complete as a woman, even if you have not born a child. And marriages can be thriving and happy, even without children. But if you say, I want that baby, I really would like to have a baby, why don't you consider adoption? Adoption is a process, I cannot stress it enough. Adoption is such a beautiful process where a child gives life to a family and a family gives life to a child. I promise you, you will be in love with that little baby, that little adopted baby in your arms in no time. If you have any more questions, that's exactly what we're here for. We want to hear from you. If you have any doubts, if something wasn't clear, please reach out to us and do stay connected with us through Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.